We'll go ahead and get our meeting called to order. Appreciate everybody being here today for this special called meeting. And you have an agenda in front of you, so I will need someone to make a motion to approve the agenda, if you don't mind.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to add one item to the agenda just briefly.
Okay.
We've had some recent developments in our case on mandatory mediation. I'd just like to update council real quick on where we are with that.
Okay, all right. Are y'all good with that?
That's fine.
Yep.
Okay, so someone will make a motion with that change?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, our agenda item today is, the first agenda item is consideration for a resolution for mask mandate for city-owned or leased facilities. And this is, there was a sample resolution that was sent to us from the Georgia Municipal Association, and Rob has looked at that, and you have a copy of what our resolution would be in front of you. It is quite lengthy, so if you want to take just a minute and read through it, and then we'll...
Mayor, if I could, basically this is a resolution that was prepared by Georgia Municipal Association kind of as a model ordinance. What you have in your packet is what I had drafted. After talking with Pete, I did add one last paragraph to what you have in your packet, and it basically provides that the last paragraph would read, "Be it further resolved that this resolution shall remain in effect until further action is taken by the mayor and city council." So that's not in your draft that you have in front of you, but we thought we needed to put something in there that basically would terminate this resolution. One last thing, after
And
again
what did you
talking,
say, Robert, and it's going to terminate when?
upon further action of the mayor and city council.
Okay.
Also, after talking with Pete, I've drafted a additional provision for your consideration, and this will appear in the first "now therefore be it resolved" paragraph after all the whereases. And what the right now what is provided in what you have in front of you is that city employees must wear a face mask when they're in public areas of the building or when participating in physical meetings with other individuals in non-public areas of the building. So basically what that is providing is that if you're in a public area of the building, the employee has to wear a face mask. If you are in a non-public area of the building, then and you are meeting with other individuals in a non-public area, you're required to wear a face mask. What I'm proposing is that, because of various employees may be working in fairly close proximity to each other, that it would not, I don't believe it's practical that everybody wear masks at all times. So I'm proposing as a last sentence to that paragraph, city employees are not required to wear face coverings in non-public areas of city buildings when meeting or in the presence of other individuals employed by the city if a distance of 10 feet is maintained. So what I'm proposing is that, let's say you have a desk that's 12 feet away from another person, even though that they're in this, the same room. If they're 10 feet apart, then they don't have to wear a face mask. And this would only apply to city employees. So anytime that you're in the presence of somebody in the public or meeting with somebody in the public, you need to wear a face mask. But if you can maintain a 10 feet distance when you're meeting with or in the presence of other city employees, if you maintain a 10-foot distance, then you would not be required to wear the face mask.
In other than public areas?
Correct. This would be in non-public areas involving city employees only, and they would not have to wear a face mask if they maintain a 10-foot distance.
So, say if I'm a Jessica and I decide to go to Pete's office, when she leaves her office, she's got to be wearing a mask. If she's going to be within 10 feet of Pete in his office, she'd have to have a mask, but she can go to his office, and as long as she's 10 feet away, they don't have to have a mask.
That's correct. Now, in your scenario, Jack, if she leaves her office, that's really, Well, I guess that's a public area of our building because people come to your office. So basically, you're correct. So going from her office to Pete's office, she would have a mask. If she's within 10 feet of Pete, she has to wear a mask. But if they maintain a 10-foot distance, then they don't have to wear a mask.
Okay.
And really, I'm thinking about people that may be working in the same area, but yet are, greater than 10 distance apart, so they're not wearing a mask, while they have to sit at their desk doing their work. So that's what I'm proposing to add to this ordinance, and I want to, just give that to you as far as discussion, whether you do or do not think that's appropriate.
I think it's appropriate, and clear, wearing a mask is covering the mouth and the nose both.
Correct. With that being said, there's a couple of things. So we've talked about the employees of the city. As far as members of the public, they have to wear a face mask when they enter and while inside the city building. So basically, you come in, when you come in, you should have a mask on, and while you're here, you should have a mask on. Now, there's a couple of things that the city is required to do under this ordinance. There are going to be situations where we have individuals who cannot wear a face mask for a variety of reasons. Either they have a breathing disorder or other problems. One of the things that the city should do is try to take whatever reasonable steps they can to accommodate those people who cannot wear masks but still provide them service. So we just need to take reasonable steps to provide services to people who cannot wear a mask. That's what the ordinance says. Now, what those reasonable steps are, I will leave that up to the administration to figure that out.
I think we already have those in place. I mean, we have a window that if an individual cannot wear a mask and come inside, they can still go through the window.
Yeah.
Well, that's another part of it. Part of the ordinance also requires the city to communicate to the public means by which they can get city services without coming to a city building.
I see.
So certainly that's something we need to communicate to the public. The other thing that we need to communicate to the public is what are the appropriate types of face coverings. So that we need to let people know these type of masks are appropriate pursuant to the CDC and any other guidelines that would apply. Also, from the city's standpoint, the ordinance also requires us to display information from the CDC explaining to the public the proper way in which to wear a mask and the proper way in which to remove a mask. So we need to make some type of display or some type of illustration that would show them how to wear the mask and how to remove the mask. I'm sure those will be on CDC website as examples. And lastly, from the city standpoint, we should be able to provide appropriate masks for people who do not have masks when they come to the building. Okay? So that pretty much is the proposed resolution. And again, I have both versions with me. If you believe that the 10-foot requirement and not be required to wear a mask is appropriate, I've got that one. And of course, I have the first one that I've given to you.
I'm going to have someone ask me the 10-foot, is that stated somewhere in the guideline? Because it was 6 foot. I'm going to have someone ask me.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was 6.
Well, I put 10 feet because I thought that would, I've heard 6 feet, I've heard 10 feet. And so I erred on the side of a further distance. We can certainly reduce that to 6 feet if that's what y'all think would be okay or appropriate.
I like the 10 feet because number one, in my view, you wear a mask if you're not in your office, okay? And this at least gives the option of somebody in an office with somebody else and they're not having a mask. And we can't rely on who's comfortable with it, who's not, okay? These are employees, and I know from within family personal experience, when a group doesn't wear a mask and one does, they're made to feel like, oh my God, you know, what are you doing? And that, we shouldn't have any of that. So this way, I think somebody that normally would wear a mask, if they, you know, keep the 10 feet, then they're comfortable and feel safe as well.
Well,
I just-
I've got a question. I mean, y'all are the employees. I'm just, you know, I don't know what your day-to-day is. Are y'all comfortable with this as employees of this
Not every
organization?
office is gonna have 10 foot of area.
Yeah,
Right.
I just, again,
What's that?
Customer service, they have those systems.
Yeah.
I don't think they're in 10 feet, they might have, we have to measure it.
Yeah. I'd just like y'all's input because y'all are the ones that are going to be living
there's-
this every day. Right.
there's a
And
lot of
also-
interpretation. Why, and Jessica, correct me if I'm wrong, but we're seeing a lot of people do it automatically. A lot of people coming in with masks. In our meetings, we're wearing masks. And I think there's been a lot of interpretation, both positive and negative. So it would be my recommendation to stay with the 6 foot, because if not, we're gonna get challenged, and then there's one more layer. But here in our building, police department, community improvement, 6 foot, and if there's meeting, then people have the masks. If they could distance themselves, they're spreading that out. So just, there's no ambiguity, that would be my recommendation, to follow the CDC, which is 6 foot.
You know, the school system has a really good system that they use that it's exposure to someone of 15 minutes or whatever could determine whether or not they have, you know, get the virus or whatever. You know, the distance of 6 foot, they use that as well to determine. Like at Colony Bank, for instance, if we have any sort of interaction with anybody, we have to have a mask on. If we're in our office by ourselves, we don't have to wear the mask, you know, so, you know. We also, every morning that we get there, we have to sign a certification saying that we have our own thermometer. No, it's a head thermometer. It's not one you put in your mouth, but one that takes your temperature. And also certifies that you don't have any sort of underlying issues, shortness of breath, coughings, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And go from there. I mean, you know, if I'm going in there to talk to Mike or Patricia or any of our other folks or whatever, I don't have to wear a mask because, you know, we've done all those precautions. But if I meet with, you know, a customer or something of that nature, I have to wear a mask as well as they do too. So I just don't, I think, you know, the 10-foot deal, I just don't want to make this
Well,
more strenuous
That's why I
than
wanted
in
to get
this
y'all's
case.
input.
And
yeah.
also, I don't know if this has a sort of a sunset, but I'd like to add a sunset on, so, you know, 90 days or whatever, this thing doesn't get
Well,
renewed, it goes
he
away.
added that.
Well, yeah, I mean, at the very end, it's basically,
Until we change it, but I'm saying if it goes ahead and goes away, we don't have to worry about it, you know.
well, one of the things that I had considered is having the sunset when the declaration of emergency has expired. But we can put anything in there that y'all want to put in there.
Does the executive order have a,
Yeah, how long is this latest executive order in effect? Is it to the end of the month?
I don't remember.
I believe so.
I think it's the end of August, yeah.
so I mean, I would sunset that with this. Or,
That's
or
just-
with this, with that.
That's 10 days.
Well, I mean, if it
Well,
gets, I mean, that's.
One of the problems that we would deal with is that if you wanted to put a sunset in at the expiration of the executive order, then I would suggest at the expiration of the executive order or any extensions thereof.
Okay.
The problem you put in, when you start talking about the extension, if they extend an executive order, it may not apply, it may not have the same terms.
Right.
That's why I thought that, you know, in the event that either the executive order expires, the emergency order expires, then you all can take action to say, you know, we are, you know, this resolution is no longer in effect based upon whatever. So you would just have to take some action in order to.
You'd have to tie it to that because That the executive order is the only way we're allowed to do this. Is that from my understanding?
Well, the executive order says that you're allowed to do it, but I think the law says you're allowed to do it.
Yeah,
That's
see,
why the executive
what-
order says you're allowed
What
to do
I
it.
understand through my conversations with Georgia Municipal, and we've been working on this for a while, is that because we were restricted and not allowed to do it in previous orders, a new order had to be issued that granted us permission to do what we are allowed to do. So, if those executive orders had never come down, my understanding is we would have been allowed to have done this back in March or
Oh,
April.
okay.
But those executive orders prohibited local government from having that opportunity. So this new order basically gives us back the right as local government to dictate what happens within our properties.
Well,
So
the-
for city and county. So-
The new executive order is issued because of the lawsuit between
Right.
the
So
governor
let
and the
me ask you
mayor.
this.
And I think the governor realized that he could not
Right.
keep us from making our ordinances.
We have we instituted, didn't we institute a pandemic, sort of, grid, says, okay, we're going green, we're going yellow, we're going red or whatnot? Could we add some of these languages into that, so we could say, okay, hey, we're going yellow, which means if we're yellow, that means that you have to wear your masks in all city buildings. If we go red, we close the lobbies. Green, business as usual.
It's just all discretion. It's up to y'all. I think
I think
if-
it's getting too complicated.
the way we have it, I could just say
Yeah,
it's
going
lifting.
10 foot, I mean, I'm gonna have to bring a measuring stick.
No, no, I'm.
Well, like the
yeah,
schools are going green Monday,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Well, I think what we need to do is just kind of carry it out towards the end of the month, see what happens. If another order comes out, we could go into September, and I'll keep a close beat on that, especially with the mayor being on some of the committees. And if it lifts, face coverings, because we are declining in numbers across the state. So if we see that, then, be ready in a work session or in a meeting. So
And
I'll track it.
all the buildings are limited access, so, for the most part, the public's not upstairs, in this building, and same thing with the police department, fire department, they're very limited in where they can go. I would say for this first, we need to keep it as simple as possible, so that it's not confusing, so that we're not, getting confused with maybe whatever the school system's doing or the county's doing. I think ours just needs to be very simple, 6 feet apart, mask if you're in, dealing with the public, and just as
Yep.
simple as it can be for the first one. And then if we get into a situation where the executive order changes or expires, or, if we wake up tomorrow and there's a vaccine and everything's over, we have another quick meeting and do what we need to do. So I'd say keep it as simple as possible.
Joe Biden said he was gonna eradicate.
Yeah.
Do what?
So Joe Biden said he was gonna eradicate
Wes.
coronavirus.
Well, it could magically disappear.
Just
Probably will after the election.
two more things. I've asked,
And therein why we have to have these kind of things for
Stop
science.
it. I'm gonna get both of y'all.
Okay.
Stop it.
He did it for, I was, you know, I was even.
Stop it. West Sailors.
All right, I'm just,
Maria's doing our signs for the doors, for our access points for all the buildings, and then I need a couple days, because if we're going to be supplying masks to the public, we're going to place the order today. We'll place the order and have them in, so it's going to take me a couple days to get this up and running, so that we're ready to take
And then
the
we've
next step.
got, people that are sanitizing the, lobby areas, wiping the door handles down and things like that. Is that-
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, good.
So,
It's a mess. They got to come in.
Right.
yeah, we got to.
That's what they do at the hospital and all these medical places. If they got to come in, just give them a mask, So what do they, if you come in the building, you got to have a mask.
Yeah.
Give them a mask
If they
if they
don't.
don't have one. And if you give them one, that means that you got to have one when you come in the building.
Right.
That means, that's just my thought of it. Because like you said, the underlying conditions, use the drive in, if you can't wear a mask. If you come in the door and you don't have a mask and we hand you a mask, then we want to know why. People want to say, well, I don't have to have a mask. If you want to do business inside, you will have to have a mask. That's why we give you one. And if not, then just use the drive-through.
that's right.
And if you in the building, if you in your office, and Jessica's in her office, I don't see no reason that y'all got to have, when you leave your office, come out where the general public is, then you need to put your mask on. But if you sit up in your office, I don't think you don't need to have one.
Right.
Right.
If you're just up there working by
Right.
yourself,
Yeah, you working by yourself, or if y'all 10 feet apart or 6 feet apart, why should you, that's just me now. If you 6 feet apart, just go over there, you over here. If you two, you got to talk. And sometimes you can't understand what you're saying with a mask on. I mean, that's just it.
Right.
So why would you have to have a mask if she over there, you over there, if y'all in the same office? That's just, but if you come in contact with the general public, then you need to have your mask on. If you come down these stairs where the public coming in here, then you need to have your mask on. Don't that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
And if you just have a mask at the door.
Right.
So that means that you got to have a mask when you come in this building.
That's right.
That's it.
Okay.
There's also within the whereas, and I think this one was meant directly for the mayor, when it says whereas prohibiting handshaking. And since she looked at me when she was shaking hands the other day at the meeting and kind of said, somebody must have slipped that in there, Mayor.
Well, hey, while we're over here critiquing this, shouldn't, on the 12th whereas, it says, to be effective, precaution is necessary to require all city employees and members of the public to wear face coverings over the nose and mouth while in public areas inside of all city buildings, and eliminate, you put inside of all buildings. Or
I'm
we
sorry.
were,
Where are you, Wes?
12th paragraph,
What page are you on?
second paragraph, or second page, third whereas. It's strike out in and put inside of all city buildings, and then strike out and while meeting in city buildings, because if you're inside a city building, no matter what, you're gonna be wearing a mask.
While in public areas of the city buildings?
Yeah.
So basically, this is requiring face masks, face coverings for anybody who is in a public area in the city building.
Yeah. Well,
So that's what we are requiring.
Public, public area in city buildings, inside of all, I don't know, I was just
In the public areas.
making.
Yeah. You don't, if you're working on the third
If you're in the
floor,
lobby, you wear a mask. If you're in a meeting, you wear a mask. That's it.
Yeah.
And then
Okay.
I don't want to confuse the public that this mandate is only for our city properties. It is not for the general city of Tifton. It's just for city of Tifton properties. This is not a mandate that all people wear masks outside. It's encouraged. We hope that you will, but that's not what this is. So I just want to be real clear so people don't get confused about that.
Speaking of that, Mayor, we do now have the authority, or at least I think when it said, if a private business who is requiring masks asks for assistance in enforcing it, we will do that.
Right, that's correct.
So I don't know if we've had any requests for that. I don't know if we
I haven't heard that.
make that public, that, because even though you see it, and there's numerous businesses now that have signs up that say,
Right.
yet you still see people that look at it and walk right in.
Yeah.
That would be a separate ordinance as far as enforcing wearing of masks on behalf of private entities who require masks. That's a separate ordinance.
But the new executive order did say that if a private business needs the assistance of local government to enforce their regulations, then they can call
I'll look at the executive order again,
on. Okay.
but basically we got two things from GMA. You've got the requirement of masks in public buildings, which is a resolution. There's another draft of an ordinance that applies to private entities. And if you don't want to, comply with the order requiring masks, you post that on your door. If you don't post it on your door, then it's presumed that you have agreed to comply with the order, which means that everybody that comes into that business, that entity, has to wear a mask. Then if they, if you want to comply with the order and you want to require a mask and they don't wear a mask, then you can seek that to be enforced by us. I don't know that that applies unless we adopt the ordinance applying that to these entities. So I don't think it's just automatic that if somebody says you can't have you got to wear a mask when you come into my building, and they don't wear a mask, can we take enforcement action? I don't believe so unless we adopt the ordinance that applies that to private entities.
I think we need to look at that.
If I remember correctly, the order was very specific and how, you had the actual, I can't remember exactly, but it was something to the effect of a warning had to be issued first, and then you couldn't find somebody more than $50 or something. I mean, there was a very specific
Something that was-
protocol to be
Correct.
followed, so we'll have to look at that, I guess.
But we need, if a private business wants assistance, we should, we should
Right.
give that assistance if they're asking for it.
What I will do is take another look at the executive order and see if we can provide assistance to private entities if they don't wear masks and they want them to wear masks, if we have that authority without actually adopting the ordinance that applies to private entities. I'll look at that as soon as we get through
Okay.
today and let you all know.
Okay. All right, so you've got before you this sample ordinance, and Rob has gone over with some of the changes that would be made from what we have at our places here.
Are we agreeable, is it, you want to revise that from 10 feet to 6 feet? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
All right?
So if we change that, and then
Pretty much it.
there was that last,
The last paragraph is basically
Oh,
that
yeah.
it'll remain in effect until further action by
yeah.
the mayor and council.
So with those two changes, if y'all are good with that, then I'll.
I move we adopt it.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then you had another,
I do,
And I
Mayor,
would
and I'll be brief.
One minute, Robert. We
Yeah.
need to make note, be sure that we let, like Fran and Abby, those, because it's public building, so it goes into these other areas. We need to be sure that,
Yeah.
that they're informed.
yeah, you'll get the word out to all of them, okay.
Okay, just quickly, just updating a little bit on our mandatory mediation petition. Seldom do I get to report to the council some good news, but as you all know, Judge McDaniel down in Moultrie has been assigned to this case. All the attorneys had a conference call with Judge McDaniel on Wednesday afternoon to discuss the order holding the sanctions in abeyance. After our conference call, Judge McDaniel agreed that he would sign the order holding the sanctions in abeyance. That order was filed this morning, and it was sent to DCA about 30 minutes ago. So everything is hopefully in place to get those sanctions, lifted. Both the county, Tai, Omega, and of course the city were all in agreement that this is the best avenue to take for the benefit of all our citizens. So with that being said, we are in the process now of looking for a mediator. I did have a discussion with Will Sanders yesterday morning. Unfortunately, his schedule is not going to permit it, but we do have to have a mediator appointed by September the 2nd. So there's other names on the list to seek to be our mediators. I think Pat O'Connor is next on the list over in Savannah. He's being contacted now to see if he'll be agreeable to serve. Naturally, once that appointment is made, we'll have 60 days to complete the mediation, get some mediation dates. As you all may be aware, that first mediation is going to require, I believe it's either all of us or a quorum to be present. So I'll keep you all posted, but again, the good news is we've got the order signed. The order is now to DCA, and hopefully that'll free up what we're trying to do as far as grants and permits and things of that nature. Okay?
Do we know where our CDBG grant was in the process? Are we still in the consideration, do we know at this point, or?
Being at August, I'm gonna probably say,
I know.
I would be very hesitant to say that it's gonna be positive, because usually in July, they really,
Right.
they look at all those.
So if we could, I'll tell you what, I'm gonna make a public statement here. If we lose this grant because we waited 2.5 months for the county attorney to join us in this abeyance, I'm telling you, that will be the greatest disservice that man could have ever done the citizens of our urban redevelopment area.
Well, Mayor, just understand that
Just.
that we could not seek the order till after the petition was
I know.
filed, which was July 1.
I know.
And of course, then we had to get the courts to appoint the judge,
I know.
and that took a couple of weeks.
It did, but at the same time, you've been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And if this county commission is okay with their attorney treating their citizens this way, if we lose this grant because we were not in compliance, I'm telling you, it just, I mean, there's nothing I can do, but good Lord, what a disservice to the people, the citizens of Tift County that live in the city of Tift. What a disservice. So I'm hoping, I'm ranting, you know, for no reason. Hopefully it's gonna be positive, but I'm like you, Pete, I don't think that it will.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Well, we will keep our fingers crossed, continue to say a prayer about it, but,
And that's all I've got.
okay. All right, does anyone else have anything? MJ? Johnny? Jack? Jessica, you got anything? Good? Okay. All right, that's all we have to come before us, so no other business. We are adjourned.